Chris Mannix covering the draft last night for Sports Illustrated. He joins us now. All right. Run through the first. Any surprises here in the first 10 picks that really stood out where you went, uh-oh, that's great, or uh-oh, that's bad?
You know, I thought Nik Stauskas at 8 was a bit of a stretch for Sacramento. The Kings have Ben McLemore, who they drafted last year. They were trying really up until about 2 picks before to trade that 8th overall pick. And when they kept it, they drafted a guy who could shoot the basketball, maybe, along with Doug McDermott, the best shooter in the draft. But he doesn't do a whole heck of a lot else. He's not great off the dribble. He's nothing more than an average defender. Doesn't have really great athleticism. I thought he's the kind of guy I had sort of pegged in that 10 to 14 range. I thought that was the one thing, Sacramento jumping up to grab him at 8, especially, Dan, with Noah Vonleh still on the table.
Yeah, I thought the same way about Vonleh. Stauskas does have athleticism. I think he's got a lot of athleticism, and I just didn't see him that high. And McDermott, I think, is going to be shipped. So it's Sacramento. I'm not quite sure what's going on with them. The 76ers, was that front office tanking again, or was that smart basketball?
I don't know, because I couldn't stop laughing. When you get to 12 and you realize that Saric is headed to Philadelphia, and you realize that there's a very good chance that next year they're going to have 2 guys that will not play for them that they drafted in the lottery. I mean, I think with Embiid's timetable, and I know that his agents put out 4 to 6 months. I remain convinced it's closer to 6 to 9. And if you get on the back end of that, you're talking about March. And Philadelphia, with the way they operate, you saw how they were cautious with their guy this year, that they will not
Nerlens Noel.
They will not bring him back in any type of rush schedule. So realistic, they're not going to play. But I like the moves, because long term, I think Embiid, when he gets back, I think he can be a dominant player. I think Saric has a little bit of Danilo Gallinari in him. I think if in a year or two, when he comes over from the Turkish league, he could be an impact type player. And look, in the second round, which was basically the Sam Hinkie Invitational, they had like 10 draft picks out there. They got some good talent there. I like KJ McDaniels and Jerami Grant. I had them both ranked as first round type talents, and they got a kid, Pierre Jackson, who they drafted in the second round last year, traded to New Orleans, and was just tearing up the D League all last year. So they got guys in the second round that are going to be on their roster. They're just going to have to kind of swallow another bad year. And frankly, Dan, that's kind of what they want to do. Remember, their first-round pick, if they get into the playoffs next year, that goes to Boston. So if they wind up in the lottery this year, they get to keep that pick.
The Lakers with Julius Randle. What's that mean now? If you're Kobe and you're looking at this, I know he said all the right things when he tweeted, but Julius Randle means what to the Lakers now?
I think it satisfies both sides. Kobe wants a guy that can help him win right away. The Lakers want a top young prospect. Randle can do both. Along with Jabari Parker, I think Randle was the most NBA-ready player right now, especially offensively. I mean, he's going to come in and probably start. I mean, I'm looking at that roster, and obviously it's a long offseason. They've got a lot of moves to make, but he can step in and be the starter for Pau Gasol right away. And you look at the way he plays, sort of that bull in a china shop type of offense right now. He can give you 10-plus points per game, I think, as a starter. I don't know what his ceiling is exactly, just because defensively he worries me a little bit, and offensively he's going to have to add polish, maybe more of a perimeter game. But he gives you what you need at the moment. He gives you someone that's not going to send Kobe off a cliff, because he's going to take 4 years to develop, and he gives you one of the top prospects in the draft.
Shabazz Napier to the Heat. We heard from LeBron. We got the best guy in the draft. I don't know what it means, but does LeBron look at this and say, now I'm staying, we got Shabazz Napier?
I don't know if he says we're staying because of Shabazz Napier. I mean, if both Bosh and Wade all of a sudden opt in, I think LeBron's going to scratch his head and say, what the heck's going on here? But he's a guy they need as well. I mean, LeBron obviously likes him, but make no mistake, they've been targeting Shabazz Napier really since the tournament, and not just because LeBron tweeted that he loved him. They've got a decision to make with Mario Chalmers. With their finite cap space and flexibility, I don't think they want to pay Mario Chalmers $4 or $5 million per year to come back. They've got Cole under contract next year for, I think, $1.3 million. You bring Cole back, you have him as a starter, you bring Napier off the bench. He can kind of give you sort of what Patty Mills gave San Antonio last year, some speed off the bench, some shooting off the bench. He's a polished guy. He's a 4-year player, and maybe he doesn't have the upside as some of the freshmen or sophomores that were available, or even the international guys. that were available. But, he's for a team that's trying to compete for a championship in the next 3 years, he's NBA ready as well.
Well, it's like Andre Miller. I remember Andre Miller watching him in college and he got to the NBA. And then you sort of watch him and you go, he's not very athletic. I don't know what he does well. And then you look at the stat sheet and you go, wow. And Napier knows how to win, and there's something to be said about that feeling of I'll take over, or it's my team, or let me lead you. And so I understand the pick. Sometimes we get caught up in athleticism, and we don't understand that somebody just knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel with Napier. The Boston situation, you take Smart. Does that mean Rondo's gone?
Well, not immediately. And Boston's saying all the right things about how it's not going to impact Rondo and they can play together. But you've got two guys in that backcourt, Smart and Rondo, that can't shoot. And you can't exist like that in today's NBA. You can play two small guards. I mean, Phoenix did it with great success with Eric Bledsoe and Goran Dragic, but those are two offensive-oriented guards. Smart, eventually is going to be an offensive-oriented player. Rondo is not. He's more of a facilitator at that position. I think Boston, ultimately wants to, now they have this pick, will probably let Rondo play at least half the season, give teams a chance to see how healthy he is going forward, and then pull the trigger at the trade deadline. But, just my instant reaction, Dan, when they drafted Marcus Smart was, Rondo's days are numbered in Boston. I just don't think that long-term you can play them together because I don't think Smart is a two-guard. I don't think I think his best position is being kind of cut out of that Derrick Rose kind of Russell Westbrook physical mold where he can just overwhelm smaller point guards with dribble penetration. And that right now is his biggest strength. But he shot something in the neighborhood of 30% the last 2 years from three-point range. As an NBA two-guard, that's just not going to get the job done.
Spurs at the end of round one. I like the pick.
Well, Dan,
I like it.
What are they possibly going to do with a combo guard who's pass first and has great floor vision? I mean, I can't understand how a guy like that is going to fit into their system. I mean, that was a vintage Spurs pick. I mean, it was high value. He might spend a lot of time in the D League next year because there's not a lot of places for him on the roster right now. They've got a lot of their guys coming back.
We're talking about Kyle Anderson, though.
Kyle Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody of UCLA. I watched him. He's size-wise. There's a Boris Diaw feel to him though, in that size, and a very good passer. So
you're doing the white guy comparison where you compare the other guy, the Kyle Anderson, to the out of shape slow guy.
Oh, okay. How about Penny Hardaway?
Penny was a touch more athletic than Kyle Anderson is, but Kyle's a terrific pick. I had him kind of in the low to mid 20s, and I don't know if he can defend point guards because he's really bad on the defensive side of the floor. But if you put him in there with a Tony Parker, or even with the Ginobili, and sometimes and have Ginobili guard the ones, he's going to be able to contribute. I think in a couple of years he's going to be solid.
I like
Let me tell you the one guy though, and I meant to bring this up because I've been doing the draft for all year long. I've done mock drafts for the entire first round. I'm pretty comfortable knowing who the top 40 picks. I couldn't pick Bruno Caboclo out of a lineup. I have no idea who that guy is. I thought I was getting Sid Finch sitting there at the draft wondering if this guy was actually real. I had to send text messages to all the international guys that I knew and ask them who this kid was. And, some of them knew who he was. They had him pegged in somewhere in the mid-40s, but Masai Ujiri is a great general manager and one of the best in the league, actually. But if this guy turns out, he's going to earn his money. But I have never heard of this guy before the draft.
I thought he was in The Sopranos. Before I let you go, the first guy that you would think of when Doug McDermott when his name was called, what's the comparison?
I've always thought Wally Zerbiak. Personally,
okay.
But if you want to go the anti-white guy comparison, I thought Anton Jamison is a pretty good comparison to him. Neither one of them, great rebounders, but they all have this awkward scoring technique. Doug's a better three-point shooter than Jamison ever was, but Jamison could play multiple positions. He could shoot off that 1 foot. Didn't exactly get off the floor really well to get his offense. I always thought that was a pretty apt comparison. I remember talking to Doug about it. He actually agreed that it was the similarities to their offensive game are there. There's a common thread there.
Oh, and Dante Exum. Yes, it's going to be
robbed of the first pick, I say.
Oh God, it's going to be
good pick though. He's going to play with
Trey Burke. He
didn't really want to go there because he thought that the Jazz were, had a point guard in place. But I think Exum, the way he plays, he's more of a facilitating two-guard kind of guy. and Burke's more of a scoring point guard, I think it's a good nucleus. Throw Gordon Hayward into the mix, and those three guys, they're going to be fun to watch next year.
Oh, God. All right. Thank you, Chris.
See you, Dan.
Chris Mannix.